Greetings, everyone. This is Decoding Influence Analysis of the Lincoln Heights Incident. This is class for the Behavior Analysis class, and so students, please pay attention. For those who may be interested, the class is a free class as long as you're a member, and we just ask for consistency. So the class is every 2 weeks on Thursday. So let us begin. First off, what is behavior tradecraft? Tradecraft refers to the specialized techniques and methodologies used in intelligence, psychological operations, media strategy, and behavior influence. Historically associated with espionage, tradecraft has evolved into a framework that applies to modern influence tactics in politics, marketing, social engineering, and public perception management. At its core, tradecraft is about understanding how narratives are shaped, perceptions are managed, and behavior is influenced, whether overtly or covertly. It is the study of how power is exercised through information, psychology, and social mechanisms. Why is behavioral knowledge important? In today's hyper-connected world, engineered narratives and behavior manipulation are everywhere, from political propaganda and media farming to social media algorithms and corporate messaging. Without an understanding of tradecraft, individuals and organizations are vulnerable to manipulation, unable to recognize when they are being influenced or coerced. Tradecraft matters because it reveals hidden agendas. Understanding influence tactics allows us to decode messaging and identify who benefits from a given narrative. It provides defensive awareness. Recognizing psychological manipulation helps protect individuals and communities from being misled or exploited. It empowers strategic communication. Those who master tradecraft can help narratives ethically, ensuring transparent and effective messaging in their own organizations. It is the foundation of counterintelligence. Governments, businesses, and media professionals use tradecraft to detect and neutralize disinformation and hostile influence operations. By applying a structured methodology to identify manipulation, we can detect, dissect, and disrupt engineer consent and behavioral influence, ensuring that we operate with awareness and intentionality rather than reacting emotionally to events around us. So let's give a summary of the Lincoln Heights, Ohio incident. The Lincoln Heights, Ohio event serves as a real-world case study in behavior influence, psychological operations, and engineered narratives. It highlights the tactics used by extremist groups, the reactions of the local community, and the broader implications of law enforcement responses to ideological conflicts. Key facts of the event. A group of neo-Nazis conducted a demonstration in Lincoln Heights, Ohio, a predominantly black community. They carried swastika flags, shouted inflammatory slogans, and displayed weapons. The group positioned themselves on an overpass, ensuring maximum visibility to motorists and residents. Local residents quickly mobilized, forming an armed counter-response that included setting up checkpoints on public roads to screen individuals. Law enforcement was present but did not intervene, leading to questions about police motivations and policy decisions. Why this event matters. Symbolism and provocation. The neo-Nazi group deliberately chose an area with a historically black population, knowing it would provoke an emotional response and potentially incite violence. Psychological operations. The demonstration was not simply a protest. It was a power projection operation designed to intimidate and assert ideological dominance. Community response and escalation. While the local residents' response was understandable, the formation of armed checkpoints created legal and ethical concerns about the right to control public access. Law enforcement involvement. The police presence without intervention raises significant questions about policy enforcement, potential infiltration or tacit approval of extremist groups. So now we're going to prepare for the methodology breakdown. This methodology is from the most recent book that we created, which you will hear about here momentarily. Now that we have covered the importance of tradecraft and the key details of the Lincoln Heights incident, we will apply our structured methodology to analyze the tactics used by the neo-Nazi demonstrators to provoke and manipulate perception, the counter-response by the local community, including strengths and potential vulnerabilities, the role of law enforcement evaluating whether their actions or inaction contributed to the engineered narrative. Through this analysis, we will expose the deeper layers of influence, manipulation, and strategic positioning at play, offering a comprehensive look into how real-world psychological operations unfold and what we can learn from them. The recent incident in Lincoln Heights, Ohio, where a neo-Nazi group conducted a demonstration in a predominantly black community, provides a critical case study for analyzing behavior, influence, and engineered narratives. Applying our tradecraft methodology, we can dissect the event to identify suspect behaviors, inflammatory actions, and the psychological techniques employed. So, number one, suspect and inflammatory behaviors. Unannounced demonstration by neo-Nazi group. The behavior. The group appeared without prior notice, displaying swastika flags and shouting insults, including racial slurs at passing motorists and residents. The reason. Such sudden appearances are designed to provoke shock, fear, and outrage, destabilizing the community's sense of security, because it does not allow the community to prepare for such an event. Shock and awe. Targeting a predominantly black community. The behavior, choosing Lincoln Heights, known for its significant black population and historical significance, as the demonstration site. The reason, this choice is a deliberate attempt to intimidate and incite racial tensions. Suspect, again, and inflammatory behaviors. Use of hate symbols in language. Behavior, displaying swastika flags, performing Nazi salutes, and using derogatory language. The reason, these symbols and actions are inflammatory, intended to provoke emotional responses and potentially incite violence. This is regardless of the historical significance of what we call the swastika symbol itself. Most people don't know the historical relevance. So in showing that, it is inciting, provoking an emotional response. The establishment of armed community checkpoints. The behavior. In response, local residents set up checkpoints, screening vehicles and individuals based on perceived ideology or race. The reason, while intended as a protective measure, this action escalates tensions and can lead to unlawful discrimination and potential confrontations. Number two, techniques from our methodology and their effectiveness. And again, this is from our latest title. I suggest many of you get it because it can protect and or just so you can learn identifying and countering behavior, influence, and engineer narratives. Now, it's just not about being on the defensive. It also is techniques to show you how to be on the offensive, not to manipulate others, but you can utilize it in many different situations to enhance marketing campaigns, enhance maybe even speaking abilities, or the subject of what you will speak of to help to motivate communities and so on and so forth. So again, this is techniques. This is number two, techniques from our methodology and their effectiveness. Focus. And this is the FATE method. Again, focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. Model. Focus. Application. The neo-Nazi group concentrated their demonstration in a high visibility area, an overpass above I-75, ensuring maximum exposure to both motorists and local residents. Effectiveness. This strategic placement amplified the demonstration's impact, drawing widespread attention and media coverage. The next one again in the A is authority. Application. The group's use of Nazi symbols and regalia attempts to invoke a sense of authority and power associated with historical fascist regimes. Effectiveness. While their ideology is widely condemned, the display of such symbols can intimidate and unsettle communities, leveraging the historical weight these symbols carry. Continue on with the fate model. Tribe. The application. The demonstrators aim to create a us versus them dichotomy, positioning themselves against the black community of Lincoln Heights. Effectiveness. This tactic seeks to deepen societal divisions, fostering an environment of distrust and hostility between different racial and ideological groups. Emotion, which is the E in the fate model. The application. Utilizing hate speech, offensive symbols, and provocative actions to elicit strong emotional reactions such as anger, fear, and frustration. Effectiveness. Emotional agitation can cloud judgment, potentially leading to impulsive actions and escalating conflicts, which may serve the demonstrator's agenda of chaos and division. Perception management. Application. The neo-Nazi group likely anticipated media coverage, aiming to portray themselves as assertive and unchallenged, while also hoping to depict the community's response as disorderly or aggressive, because blacks are supposedly always aggressive, right? So effectiveness. By manipulating media narratives, they attempt to gain sympathy from like-minded individuals and portray the targeted community negatively, influencing public perception. So provocation and reaction. Application. The demonstrator's inflammatory presence was designed to provoke a defensive or aggressive response from residents. Effectiveness. Such provocations can lead to escalated confrontations, which the group may use to justify their actions or recruit others by showcasing the resultant chaos. Exploitation of legal boundaries. Application. By conducting a demonstration on public sidewalks without obstructing traffic, the group operated within legal limits, complicating immediate law enforcement intervention. Effectiveness. This approach allows them to spread their message while portraying themselves as lawful, potentially garnering support from free speech advocates. Now, point number 3, observations. Increased neo-Nazi demonstrations during Donald Trump's tenure in law enforcement response. Observation. Neo-Nazi demonstrations appear more frequent during Donald Trump's presidency, with law enforcement often present but not intervening, leading to perceptions of protection or undercover involvement. Analysis. Correlation with political climate. Research indicates a surge in far-right activities during Trump's tenure. In 2024, Wired magazine, they reported 34 neo-Nazi demonstrations across 16 states, a notable increase from previous years. Law enforcement presence. The consistent non-intervening presence of police at these events can be interpreted in multiple ways. 1. Protecting First Amendment rights. U.S. law enforcement is tasked with upholding free speech, even for controversial groups, as exemplified in National Socialist Party of America versus Village of Skokie, which is a town in Illinois, where the Supreme Court protected a neo-Nazi group right to march. I believe they were marching in a predominantly Jewish area at that time. Perceived bias or infiltration. The lack of intervention may foster perceptions of tacit approval or undercover involvement, especially when contrasted with responses to other protest groups. So what I mean by that is that when it comes to some of these very far right or neo-Nazi leaning groups, law enforcement tends to be much more passive. But when it comes to the protesting of groups, let's say even like the Black Panthers in the past and things of this nature, the response from law enforcement was much more aggressive, even violent. Acts resembling terrorism, use of Nazi symbols, firearms, and intimidation. Observation. Demonstrators employ Nazi symbols, brandish firearms, establish unauthorized checkpoints, and engage in aggressive behavior, actions perceived as terroristic. Analysis. Legal perspective on symbols and actions. First Amendment protections. The public display of Nazi symbols is generally protected under free speech, as in the Skokie case. State-specific legislation. Some states have laws against using such symbols to terrorize. For instance, in California, Penal Code 11411 prohibits displaying a Nazi swastika on private property without consent to terrorize occupants. The definition of terrorism. The federal definition in U.S. law defines domestic terrorism as acts of as acts of dangerous to human life intended to intimidate or coerce civilians or influence government policy. While the described behaviors are intimidating, legal classification as terrorism depends on specific circumstances and the jurisdiction interpretations. Now, this is interesting enough. The entities that tend to do these types of outlandish marches in communities that literally don't want them there at all, pretty much prying on people who are many times already beat up and battered, a lot of times they are very familiar with the law, okay, where they know they're not violating, let's say, the law, even though it's quite distasteful. Now, addressing potential agent provocateurs, a citizen's response. Observation. If demonstrators are agent provocateurs, unmasking and identifying them might deter future incidents. Let's analyze this. The legal implications of citizen actions. Citizens' arrests. Laws vary by state, but generally, a citizen's arrest is permissible only when a felony is committed in one's presence. Attempting to unmask individuals without clear evidence of a crime can lead to legal repercussions for the citizen. So, right to privacy and potential for escalation. Forcibly unmasking individuals can violate privacy rights and escalate tensions, potentially resulting in violence or legal action against those attempting the unmasking. The recommended approach is documentation. Citizens can legally document public events by photographing or recording, provided they do not infringe on reasonable expectations of privacy. And law enforcement collaboration. Sharing documented evidence with authorities is advisable. While perceptions of law enforcement bias exist, official channels remain appropriate avenue for addressing potential provocations. And so, in this sense, the reason why this came up because of the nature of many believing from many backgrounds that the people who are holding these marches, due to their aggressive behavior, almost as if they are untouchable, suggests that many in these groups, if not the entire group itself, is in fact law enforcement or agents on some level, whether it be FBI, CIA, whatever they may be. All right. And the reason why they are, the one thing that they would not want by any means necessary is to be unmasked, photographed, and then of course then put online for citizens to figure out who the heck these people are. So that came up, and so I wanted to address that as well, just for the greater community. So that ends the class today, but what's next? Behavioral students, expect a short quiz on this topic, and you'll see that quiz when we do speak. And it will be an online quiz. Any questions or comments, leave them in the comments or contact me directly. If you want to submit a person, situation, country, or company for analysis, leave them in the comments or contact me directly. We will be analyzing Vice President Kamala Harris next. And of course, so behavior students, stay tuned for that, because that is going to be very interesting. And besides that, I hope everyone has a good rest of the evening, and we will talk soon. Take care.